Hey guys, it's Alabama Annie. I decided I'd take a walk up the trail today. My nephew Daniel has bush hogged it so we can actually walk a good distance now. And I'm going to stop every now and again and tell you a little bit of a story, uh, mess with my metal detector and see what treasures I might find. It feels like early fall out here. It's still warm, but it's got a slight smell of campfire smoke in the air and just a beautiful day. So I'm going to enjoy it for a while. Here we go. You know, we've had a lot of adventures up here in these woods behind the old home place. I was just thinking about the bus or buzzus that used to sit over that way until the storm came and took everything out. The bus was already gone, but it just messed up the camp entirely. So I'm about to establish a new one up here somewhere. I don't know where yet, but I'll find a place eventually. All right, I'm recording again. I'm walking up into the area that we used to call the old Cruise Holler. And there's some cane growing down in there, a big patch of it. Good for fishing poles, I suppose. The Cruise Holler was built, there were houses here, and people lived here along the creek bank back in the day. I'd say, from what I heard, the houses burned around the turn of the century, or maybe they burned them, I don't know. And here is one of the old remaining trees up here that hasn't been cut or fallen down in a storm. It's a hickory tree, and it's probably 150 years old if I had to guess. And right in front of it here is a well. You can't see the well right now because everything is so overgrown. But right there is a well that still has water in the bottom. Now we're leaving the Cruise Hollow area. That's where one of the houses was. And another right here. And I often find little trinkets in here, nothing spectacular, no coins, nothing of that nature. But I'll tell you a little story. Right in here, across from the old well, somewhere right about where this mound of dirt is and this fallen tree log, I found one day in the wintertime a tiny little porcelain hand and just a bit of an arm, smaller than a Barbie doll, sticking up out of the ground. The little hand was reaching up through the dirt and just really wigged me out. I got it. I have it at home in a little trinket box. If I put various objects that I find up here into the little box. And I also have a big flower pot full of pottery shards that I found here, white and native pottery. And so we're going to walk along. I'll tell you another story right up here. This is, we're coming up on an area that my son Chas likes to call You Might Die Ridge. Because when we had the Jeep here, and his friends had Jeeps and so forth and so on, they would take their Jeeps up this. And it's a sheer drop off on one side and a steep embankment on the other, up, going up. So it's a very narrow little trail, you'll see. But right here, this is an area I can tell you about. When the buzzus was still here, before Chas and I sold it to someone, there used to be a lot of parties at the bus. Campfires, a lot of live music. It was a lot of fun to be up there. Great fire pit, places to cook out, so forth and so on. I'm going to sit down right here. And so one evening, when I was staying on the bus, I had decided to camp on the bus for some reason that that time. I was on the bus and I heard voices, but I thought it was in the distance somewhere because sometimes people go into the old cemetery to the left of that area to look for ghosts or just to hang out or make out or whatever they do up there. And anyway, so I'm on the bus and it's getting late and I'm getting ready for bed, but I've heard those voices. And so I fall asleep, but not too long after I fall asleep, I start to hear music. And not just any music, but cellos and violins and other stringed instruments and voices again. And so I thought, how curious. So I got up and I walked from where the bus was to here in that clearing over there that is now overgrown. And they had a good-sized fire going in the fire pit. And as I draw closer, I can see the flames and I can see silhouettes of people. And the music is getting louder. And when I got up here, I promise you, this is the truth. There were about 35 people, most of them members of the orchestra from the local college and from the youth orchestra, here around that campfire, playing Bach, Beethoven, and other current songs. So it was really cool. I do not have a picture of that, nor do I have a video. Someone might, but I do not. That's just one memory about this area at the base of You Might Die Ridge, which we're headed to shortly. Okay, so we're back. I have made the command decision not to go up You Might Die Ridge. Not that I'm afraid of snakes, but I attempted. It is so overgrown. See that space between the trees up there? That's the road, and it's all overgrown really big time. And when I stepped across the ditch, the creek bed here, and headed that way, I saw a snake slither across from me, and I couldn't tell what type of snake it was. So I believe I will tell you this next part of our little talk today from over here on this side of the creek. All right? All right, so here's what happened. Back, I think the middle of March, or maybe into April, I walked all the way to the top of that, which we will do one day, and you can see how beautiful the view is from up there. It's really cool at night when it's a clear night, and there is no ambient lighting up here whatsoever, and you can see a million stars. So anyway, back to the story. One day, the day I walked up there, back in April or mid-March or April, I walked all the way to the top. I came back down, and I was really looking at the trail because it had rained and it was slippery. So I was really paying attention, and that's when I saw a footprint, a single bare footprint, a great footprint. It was very clear in where the mud had been and run down the hill. It was probably a size 12 or 14, maybe larger foot, a single foot. I looked everywhere else for another print, did not see one. I looked down the embankment, and I did see where something had been coming and going down that steep embankment, but I couldn't see any prints, nor were there any on the other side of the road, because like I said, there's a dirt, basically a dirt wall, where the road was cut in, and it's, you can't walk up it. There were no prints there. And I suspect it was a Bigfoot. And it's not the first time I've encountered prints of that nature. I never started photographing them. I did take that one shot, and I believe I have it still on my laptop. That's not the first incident I've ever had up here. You know, I've told you this story before about the time I was gathering rock over on that ridge behind me. Well, actually, on the other side of that ridge, and that is also a very, very steep ridge. As is this one, you can see all the fallen timber there by the creek bed. And this ridge in front of me goes up at a very steep angle. The other one behind me, where I was that day, you couldn't climb up it even holding onto trees. You know, it's that steep. At any rate, I was gathering rock. I used to sell rock for landscaping. I would load it on my trailer or in my Jeep. I would take it down to the house, to the front yard, and I would stack it, you know, and then I would sell those stacks for a good deal of money. And in fact, I funded myself for almost 2.5 or 3 years doing that and my music. So at any rate, I was over there gathering rock, and it was a beautiful day. It's getting kind of windy now, but it wasn't like this. It wasn't windy that day. It was sunny. It was late fall, and the woods was quiet. And the woods is quiet today, but not as quiet as it was that day. I've heard birds today, and I've heard other things, and I saw that snake. But as I was gathering the rock in the creek bed and throwing them up toward the back of the Jeep, suddenly from above me, a rock comes flying through the air. And that rock was about the size of a football. And when it landed in front of me, it came straight down. It did not come from behind me or from the side. It came off the top of that ridge with some velocity. And it landed right in front of me at the back of the Jeep. And when that happened, I was like, okay. And then I got really quiet and I started looking around and listening. Oh, and prior to that, I had smelled something. I don't know what it was. It smelled like old pee or wet dog, something of that nature. I was thinking there until that happened. So I was being vigilant. But after the rock came down, I stood stock still and just started. My head was on a swivel and I was doing this, you know, just looking and listening. And then I heard limbs breaking above me. No more rocks came down, but there was a movement and a thrashing about at the top of that ridge. And so I made a command decision to get the heck out of there. So I did. I left with the trailer half loaded, with the Jeep more or less loaded, and came back to the house. And that's the last time I ever gathered rock on that side of this property, which is up behind the old cemetery. And there also I've had some experiences. I've heard whoops, and I've seen tree structures where the trees are not bent by the wind but have been strategically placed to form little teepee-like shelters. So, and that is also where I found another print one time. But, you know, I definitely believe that they exist. I think they are, they're a primate. And they eventually, I believe, maybe even in my lifetime, will require study and research, you know, and observation. And I think that will happen. But at any rate, that's that story. Now let's move on. Now, this road, this is where we just were, right? Well, right there. I was sitting right there when I was talking to you. And there's the Ridge Road. But now, just to my left of that, as I'm walking back out, is a trail my nephew Daniel has cut. Thanks, Daniel. And it will take me up to the power line, where the big utility poles are and the lines come through. And he has a deer feeder up here and so forth. It's a beautiful area. I love it, especially in the spring with all the wildflowers and winter. But as you can see, that ridge is overgrown, but it just goes and goes and goes for miles. That way and this way, through this valley. But right over there is a place where you can actually get to the spring, and the little creek bed is so overgrown I can no longer get there right now. Now in winter, I'll take you there. But it's a beautiful place to hang out, especially on sunny fall days. Now right here we have a good view of Lookout Mountain as I'm retracing my steps. And that is the same Lookout Mountain that runs from Attala, Alabama, all the way up through Chattanooga and joins the Appalachian chain. And now where I'm standing is the spot. For those of you who know the story and those of you who don't, I'm up here at the Cruz Holler again. And this is the location where I was sitting on a rock that used to be right there beside the old well when a song came to me. And it came all at once, and it was, I entitled it Cold Cold. And it came to me in about 5 minutes. It was the most amazing experience I've ever had writing a song, because it came through me from someone else. So anyway, guys, I've enjoyed this little walk and this little talk. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot more time today. I've got to do some other things. We've been working hard at the home place, cutting back brush and taking building supplies upstairs. I'm about to start a project up there as well. And just getting things ready for fall, more or less, and enjoying the beautiful weather, which it occurs to me I should say to you, do the same. Now I'm going to get my metal detector out and go check the ground out in different areas I like and see what I can find. If I find anything, I'll add it to this video. Have a good one.